Welcome to today's mainstream with Harpreet Singh Toor. आप सबनु प्यार भरी सत श्री अकाल, नमस्कार, आदाब and shalom. Let us begin today's show with something really interesting which happened actually in California. And this is about, and I'm going to talk here about what I always talk about, that, US has its own place in history. It always has, and if it continued, it will. But before I move further, let me say this thing that please always feel free to send me an email on justour@gmail.com or info@justbroadcasting.com, and I will be more than happy to answer your questions and concerns. The thing which I'm talking now, which I'm going to talk first before we go deep dive into the politics and everything what is happening in the United States and all over the world. In California, we have a Punjabi Sikh girl who is a member of California State Assembly. 4 people who have their ancestry from Gujarat, and these are the facts, I'm not making it up. They asked an appointment to meet her. And, being an assembly person, that's your job here. Constituents wants to meet you, you give the time and you give the appointment. And let me make clear before I go further into it that this is something which I'm further investigating and I'm further looking into it. But so far the facts which I have are as follows as I'm stating right now. So these 4 individuals went to the office, and in her office they literally threatened her because she was talking about that the people, the Sikhs, were not getting the justice in India in 1984, and she was trying to bring up some bill in the California State Assembly. So when they actually started threatening her, that's when she called in, the sergeant in arms, that's what they call, who is actually in charge of the security of the elected officials there. So she called them in. So they came in, they removed these 4 individuals, and after they were removed, the information was provided to FBI to further investigate. Now, when FBI started investigating and questioning them, now all of a sudden they were changing their tunes. And because they were changing their tunes, it doesn't mean that they didn't mean originally what they meant or what they were there for. So it is still under investigation, but one thing is for sure, based on whatever happened on that time, the elected assembly person has been advised to avoid places of worship, including the Gurdwara and the temples and the mosques. Because, most of the South Asians, they come from there, and including the church. And till the investigation goes on. And that actually is sort of like a painful for me to understand. And because now I'm sure that she has, wherever she goes, at least some sort of undercover watching and monitoring. And that is something which is, for me it is very disturbing. In India, even though you are not even an, MLA yet, you could be only an MC, and you will have the cops with you. And if you are MLA, you have a couple of cops with the strain guns and everything. That's a show of I'm somebody. And now let me say something about I'm somebody. Okay. There's a Hindu gentleman who is a professor, and he teaches somewhere in UP. Let us leave the name out. And when he starts his first class, the very first class in the new session, when the new students come in, this is where he starts from. He says that, I'm so and so, and I will be teaching you, this subject. And then he will tell them that before we deep dive into the studies and education, he said, you need to understand one thing. Even though this professor has few books to his credentials, he said, yeah, you know me, there are a couple of other people know me. He said, if you start looking around, how many people would know me? Maybe 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, okay, maybe 100,000. Now he said, look at the population of UP. Do they really know me? Let us look at the population of India. How much I exist? And if you compare me with the population of the world, do I matter? To that group, it matters, even though to the wider group, it will not, because they don't know what he is doing, and what he is doing may not affect the lives of the other, those billions of people. Ultimately, it may, based on what he is doing. But what I'm trying to say here is that I will share my personal experience when I was here, originally when I came here. I think it was 1987 or 88. I went to Washington, D.C., and I went into NASA museum over there. They had this IBM computer right there. When you enter, it was somewhere, either left or right, somewhere in there. And that was one of the very first pieces of the puzzle at that time. And when you look at the screen, you see your face on the computer. The whole screen is your face and your body. And it said on the bottom, touch the screen, And when you touch the screen, all of a sudden, instead of your face, you can see the people and some more things behind you. You touch it again, then it widens the angle, and you see other people who are standing behind you or watching around or moving around. And you touch again, then you see the building from outside. You touch again, you see the DC. You touch again, you see the US. You touch again, you see the earth. The beach. You touch again, then you see the earth. You touch again, on, and then even the earth becomes it's simple, very small dot in the universe. So what I'm trying to tell here is, if the earth in this universe does not mean anything, then do we really mean anything? But for me, yes, we do. How we do? We do so that we can make not just our life, but the people who we come in touch with every day, every other day, make their life a bit better. That's why I always, a lot of time when I finish my show, I always ask the people that whatever you do during the day, to your list of what you are going to do, add one more thing to that list, that you will do something as a favor to somebody who you don't know, and you just walk away without accepting any thank you or any congratulations or anything, or accept waiting for anything in return. Just do a favor and walk away. That is what matters, and that's what the life should be. Not about this. Why? Because justice delayed is justice denied. And believe it or not, people are not talking about it openly, unless it is somebody like me who will not hesitate to talk about it. But inside, like they say, you just need to scratch the surface. You will see the pain. You will see the hurt. You will see all those emotions which they are holding back, suppressing. And that is something, which actually should be the reason. I really wish that those 4 people, they had gone in there and they could have said that, okay, you know what, assembly person or assembly women, we understand your issues and we are here to help work with you so that we can get the justice to the people who have been denied the justice, instead of trying to suppress the voice of the people who are free to speak and they use the freedom of speech. We were talking about the free speech and everything. You know, I always talk about, yes, you can see I'm a Sikh, not Sikh, I'm a Sikh. And I practice my faith and I respect every faith. I go to the temples, I go to the mosque, I go to synagogues, I go to churches, I interact with the rabbis as well as with the imams, the fathers, the priests or the pastors, and I have some close relationships with quite a few of them. But there is one thing which I have found based on democratic value and some other values. Guru Nanak was the first one to put the women at par with the men. Guru Gobind Singh Ji was the first one to create a democratic structure in any community when he picked up the 5 Pyaras and let 5 Pyaras decide, how to treat him as an ordinary Sikh, not as a guru. Then how to have the freedom of speech and defend it. One of the reasons in the freedom fights, during the when India bought its freedom, fighting against the Britishers, if you really look at the history, you will see one thing which is very interesting. And that interesting thing actually is that more than 90% of the people who died, either they were hanged or they were killed or they were sent to Kala Pani / Andaman and Nicobar jails, which was known that once you are sent there, you are gone for the rest of your life, period. No ifs and buts, no communication, nobody would know who you are, where you are, and anything. So that was the reason, because of the faith in freedom of religion, freedom of speech. We always talk about Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji's Shahadat also, but that is also about the freedom of religion. Yes, it was at that time for the Hindu Pandits who came in from Jammu and Kashmir, but we also need to look at it under those rules and the rulers, who else would have reached out, and some of the people have their own views about who Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji was. I'm not going to discuss that, because that is something I feel that they actually disrespected our Guru's faith and his dedication to the service of the community and the world as a whole. So that freedom of speech also I talked about earlier, I'm going to talk again, which I will go on talking till I do my shows, off and on, that from Iran, Muhammad Ahmed Nejad, the president of Iran at that time, came to visit Columbia University, United Nations, and Columbia University invited him to speak. The mayor was Rudy Giuliani at that time. We know who Rudy Giuliani is. At one time he was a mayor of America, and right now I even don't know what to call him, honestly. He actually told the dean, or asked the dean, more appropriately, to cancel the invitation to Muhammad Ahmadinejad, the president of Iran. And the dean of Columbia University literally told the then mayor, Rudy Giuliani, that, honorable mayor, I don't tell you how to run the city, because I do not tell you how to run the city. You have no right to tell me how to run the university. If I need your advice, I will definitely reach out to you. And let's not forget, Columbia University is a tiny part, even though it's a big university, no doubt about it, and it is Ivy League university, but when you really look at it from the number of people and everything, it's, you know, a fraction of the population within New York City. But think about it, that the dean of the university refused the mayor to obey his orders or whatever he requested. Just imagine. Now put yourself in the shoes and think about it. If we can really do something like that in India, what would happen next day? Not even next day, within the next hour or so. Somebody will come and knock on the door and you get arrested, and probably you will, you know, spend your time behind the bars, like, you know, it has been happening. Mr. Sisodia in New Delhi, he was behind the bars for what, 17 months, something like that. Kejriwal behind the bars for a couple of months. Kavitha came out after 5 months behind the bars. You know, that is something. A person is arrested only after investigation and then found that, okay, they are going to make an arrest, and after the arrest, the person will be questioned and released on the bail so that the person can go and do his or her job. It's not that way in India anymore. You know, National Security Act is being abused. Enforcement Directorate is being abused. So why I'm talking about it? The reason is because when we come to the United States, we do not leave that mindset and mentality behind, or we not improve the mindset or the mentality. That is something which needs to do, and we need to understand that, and we need to do that. Yes, we are very successful as entrepreneurs, as a businessman. We are very successful in a lot of these fields. The CEOs of the top companies, they are South Asians. You know, we have Nadala, we have for Microsoft, his name starts with P. Pachauri. And then we have Mr. Bindra, World Bank president. So then we had Nui for Coca-Cola. We can, you know, we can look at the list and we can see all that. Okay. When people talk about India being world power, my issue is, or my request is, that we also need to rise above to that level intellectually and mentally. Instead of putting Arundhati Roy behind the bar for something which she said more than 15 years ago or 13 years ago. The previous government, when she said it, they did not put her behind the bars. But now, the BJP decided to put her behind the bars for something which she said about the freedom of the speech, freedom about the people. So, again, for me, this is something which I always humbly request to please, please, please try to learn. And what would happen to these people who came to threaten her? I don't know yet, but definitely I promise you, once I get more information, I will definitely share with you. And if I got the permission from the assembly person, I probably would also share the names with you on that. So let us move to the next thing, which is something which I hope that the Indian Prime Minister Modi, he went to meet Putin. He just went to Poland and then to meet President Zelensky of Ukraine. And he came back. After coming back, he made a call to President Putin. So I think this is a time where the Prime Minister Modi can really, and I hope so, that he can literally rise above his day in, day out bashing of the minority communities and be somebody who has achieved something internationally. where India can be proud of it and he himself can be proud of it also, that he did something. Because that war, which I'm definitely going to talk after the break, that war actually is getting more and more bloody. Everybody thought that Russia will just walk over Ukraine, and the war is already more than 2.5 years old, and it is soon going to be into the third year. A lot of people have died, and a lot of more people will die unless a solution is found. So we were talking about the wars now, Ukraine-Russia war, and Prime Minister Modi's visit to Ukraine and meeting the President Zelensky. Excuse me. So we should not forget about the war, the other war, which is the Gaza-Israel war. There's no doubt about it that, the President Joe Biden is supporting Israel to the hilt. We should not be surprised on that, okay? Because international politics plays different than day-to-day politics and local level politics. Number one, even though officially we are getting about 40,000 plus people died in Gaza, I'm definitely it is more than 100,000. And I have known a couple of, I came across at least one personally and one otherwise where the whole family got wiped out with just one bomb from Israel. Then in Iran, killing the Gaza's, Hamas's leader, when he went actually at the oath-taking ceremony of Iranian president, killing him in Tehran, in Iran at that point, that actually is inviting the escalation. Before that, President Donald Trump, the then President Donald Trump, authorized and killed Soleimani, which was actually Quds, in charge, which is Iranian forces. So, and then in Israel killed a Lebanese commando leader. So, what is happening here? Yes, Israel knows, including Bibi Netanyahu, that right now he can milk maximum from everybody. And that's what he's doing. He knows US is going for elections, so Joe Biden cannot antagonize him. He can press him to reach a deal, which he's refusing to do, which he goes on changing, which has been even come out, and it had been made public that he changed the terms of ceasefire after the people went in, to his negotiating team was there, so that there is no agreement, because he knows that this is the time. And not only that, the presidential election of US matters so much because a lot of things are attached with it. US being a superpower, China has its own interest, India has its own interest, Europeans have their own interest, Russia has its own interest, and on top of that, Ukraine and Israel, they have their own interests. So everybody, all these countries, they are actually going to use every instrument which they have, including AI, to affect the outcome of election. You know what actually had changed? The candidacy. Joe Biden, they never thought that Joe Biden will actually drop from the race. Nobody expected Kamala Harris to, rise up to that occasion and show that, yes, she has, what it takes to be there. even though still there are 70 plus days to go and prove it. But, so what I'm saying here is that those wars affect US, and anything happening in US affects those wars. What is happening in Pakistan? Taliban came back to Afghanistan. Taliban's main enemy actually is now Pakistan's government. Why? Because they are like, when we were in power originally, Pakistan's government actually provided logistical support to US, and US was successful only because of this logistical support from Pakistan's military and the government. So naturally they are the target. And let's not forget, we watch Indian news and we always look at this, Pakistan sent these number of terrorists, and so many terrorists killed this one. And if you go to Pakistan, especially those Balochistan and Northwest Frontier Province area, over there you will read the news in a different order, in the opposite way, that the Indian government is funding these extreme elements and this and that. That is international politics. Let's not forget that. Pakistan and Iran, they have so much trade in between, but they also fought on the border. The Iranians did attack part of Pakistan territory because there was some activities which Iranians did not like, and they said Pakistan government is supporting it. So what I'm trying to say here is that within international politics, everything has to be taken with a grain of salt. Let's take a look at Yemen. How many remember that Yemen civil war is still going on? Sudan. How many among us know what is happening in Sudan? Because it's not on the TV screens anymore. Yeah, Ukraine is. There could be so many reasons which we can debate, but let's leave those reasons out. So what is happening internationally affects everything, and there are people within US government who actually look at all this who actually look at the world affairs, and then they suggest to the president what they look and what they expect. Things may not happen exactly what they expect, but at least they make some judgments. I will give you a perfect example, which has changed a lot now. During the Cold War, America actually supported so many dictatorships at that point, not the democracies, but the dictatorships. The reason was because America was fighting that war against Russia, USSR at that time. For them, USSR was a target, not those small countries. Those small countries were like, those pieces on a chessboard. Once Russia is gone, democracy came on the top. That became a priority. Then within democratic setup, which country actually will provide what to the United States in benefits? That makes the difference. That's why even though US has put up a ban on export and sale of Russian oil and gas, India is buying it dirt cheap and along with China and North Korea. Why they are not taking that hard action on India? Because they are, developing India as another piece to countercheck China. And then we have Bangladesh situation. I know it could get confusing more and more. But interestingly, in Bangladesh, Indian government of Prime Minister Modi is being blamed for what happened in Bangladesh. and they are actually literally, supporting the groups from Pakistan and the Chinese government. And India doesn't want China in its backyard because China is already there. Nepal already had some agreements with China, even though now they are asking the Chinese government to waive some loans. But if you really can understand what I'm talking about here. So this is something which is the chess game which is being played. And that we need to understand before we really talk about elections in US. So let us talk about now, the US election. We all saw the, DNC in Chicago. Let's not forget 2-3 things which I think we need to understand. The last time convention took place in Chicago was 1968, and there were riots on the street in Chicago. And it was a disaster for Democrats, and Richard Nixon, a Republican, became the president. It was his third time running for the president. He had lost twice before, and they were not sure if he will win again at the beginning of the election. But then things happened, and he ended up being the president. That's a different story, that he ended up not only being the president, but also the first one to get, leave the office under threat of getting impeached. So this time, the Democrats, they choreographed the whole convention in a different fashion, different way. Joe Biden stepping down to be the candidate made the first big difference, because the people who were angry at Joe Biden, even though Kamala Harris is vice president with him, but they really cannot get mad at her because she was carrying the policies of Joe Biden. I'm talking here Gaza and Israel, if you know what I mean, what I was talking earlier. Okay? If they want to talk about Iran, still, she was vice president. Yes, she has come out in full support of Ukraine and Zelensky, no doubt about it, which Trump has not come out that forcefully. Why? Because there is something about Trump, and everybody, even within the Republican Party, they have started questioning that what is it which Putin has, which Trump is afraid of. I personally, I think if we really look at it, as far as the policies are concerned, there were a lot of things which went on during his administration. People say he was really good, this and that. I beg to differ. The reason is, number one, he was the only president who added 25% of the deficit to the Treasury, which was already in deficit. Number one. Number two, he created a divide in US society, which is becoming hard and hard to bridge. And I just don't blame those right-wing MAGA people, but I also blame the left-wing people. And what was the a good moment which I saw out of this whole thing was Ocasio coming out and speaking on the floor, and she actually did a great job. She was not the AOC which actually won the original election. She was the AOC who has matured so much that she can see what is happening and how the things happen. And she gained the respect within Democratic Party that she was given the chance to speak that much. That also signified the importance of the next generation. Joe Biden leaving to not to be the candidate for the president elevated Kamala Harris, which is the next generation. That also made the difference. Now, even though there is not much difference of age between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but everybody was talking about Joe Biden's age. Even today, nobody is talking about Trump's age. Is not that surprising? Policy-wise, there's nothing. He is still doing what he always does. Disrespect the people, demean the people, disrespect the women. So those are the factors, including the overruling of Roe versus Wade actually had given a really nice opening to the Democrats. And I will not be surprised if during this election, all the three branches of elected body of the U.S. Congress and the President is with the Democrats, which means the House, the U.S. Senate, and the White House. It sounds like the, House I have always said that it will flip. Senate I was not sure, but after Biden dropped out, for me, Senate is going to stay the way it is. Democrats may come down to 50 instead of 51. But White House I was still not sure about it. And I'm still having, a little bit doubt about if Kamala Harris will be the president. And I will give you the reason for that. The reason for that is that the Midwest and South, they are still not ready for a woman as a president. Even within the African community, the women are not respected at par. Even within Christianity community, there are groups of Christianity where women is not considered equal to a man. So that is something which I have the doubts about, but we will see as we move along. What is going to be good for Kamala Harris is upcoming break in the interest, the lowering of interest rates by the central bank. That is actually going to give a boost to the current administration, even though it is Joe Biden's administration, but Kamala Harris can claim that mantle and claim that it were our policies without saying that it was Joe Biden's policies, saying that it was our policies, it was Democratic policies, which actually helped not only to contain the inflation, but also now you are seeing the fruits of containing the inflation, the interest rates are going down. And as far as the gas is concerned, I will say something here. I have said before. Right now, U.S. is the top producer of oil and gas in the world, number one. Even though the other candidate, Donald Trump, claims otherwise, but the fact is that U.S. is the number one producer. That's a fact. Number two, immigration, which is another hot topic, where the Trump team can actually try to, pin Kamala Harris, but they will not succeed. The reason is because one of the most conservative senator, a Republican senator, come up with a deal with the White House and Chuck Schumer, the majority Democratic leader of the Senate. But Donald Trump said, don't do it because he may lose the votes. So Republicans did not do it. So Kamala Harris has that point. Number two, ceasefire in Gaza and Israel. We know that Netanyahu is close to Donald Trump. So he may be dragging his feet so far because he has been assuming that Donald Trump will be the president and he will get a better deal. But now the, like they say, the earth is shifting under your feet, or the land is shifting under your feet. So if Bibi Netanyahu sees that, Donald Trump is not going to be the president, it's going to be Kamala Harris, then he will try to make the best deal with Joe Biden, because Kamala Harris will be the president for next 4 years, maybe 8 years, and Joe Biden is here only for what, 4 months, less than 4 months. So that trajectory will also change. Let me remind to the people who may not remember it, or who may not know it, or who may have grown after, who were born in late 70s, early 80s, maybe in the 90s. Definitely after that, those people who were born, they don't know. During Jimmy Carter's presidency, Iranian hostage took place. The deal with Iran was finalized and signed and agreed on before the election in 1980, presidential election. But Republicans were successful in getting one of the top Democrat who knew inside everything to actually resign from the administration and indirectly join hands with a Republican with a promise that he will be given a plum post of an ambassador to one of the top countries, either UK or Japan. And he worked behind the closed doors in Middle East. He stayed there till that don't do anything till Ronald Reagan takes the oath of the office. Jimmy Carter lost the election. Ronald Reagan won the election. He took the oath on January 20th, and after that, they released the hostages. So, international politics tied with US politics, that is something which we should be very aware of and we should know about it. So, having said that, till next time, good night and good luck.